Dan ga ik er nu eigenlijk vanuit dat we een verbinding hebben met iemand aan de andere kant van de wereld. So from here on, I'll switch to English for the remainder of this section of the program. One of the opportunities of the corona crisis, of course, is that it's a lot easier to make a connection, to broadcast from the other side of the world, and to see how anyone is doing on the other side of the world. We're tuning in with the former leader of the Liberal Democrats of the UK in 2007. He became Deputy Prime Minister of the UK from 2010 to 2015. He's a husband, father of 3, ex-politician, and maybe first and foremost for today, the Vice President Global Affairs and Communications at Facebook. Sir Nick Clegg, welcome.
Hi, good to see you.
And just wondering, what time is it where you are right now?
It is now, it's 8 in the morning.
8 in the morning. So did you yet have breakfast or not?
Oh yes, I've been up for a while. I'm an early riser.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us. I will give you the stage right now and you will give your speech, after which we will have some questions for you.
Sure, I'm not going to give a speech, to be honest. I just thought I'd make a few opening remarks on the theme of responsibility. And thank you very much for in inviting me. Ik kan ook Nederlands spreken, mijn moeder is Nederlands, maar ik denk dat dit ingewikkeld verhaal van Facebook en voor verantwoordelijkheid, dat het misschien beter is als ik in Engels doorga. So Facebook obviously is a company now which has a very large number of people around the world, around 3 billion people around the world using its products, Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, WhatsApp every month. And that success, of course, brings with it very profound responsibilities and profound accountability as well for the actions of a private company, but a private company which in many respects is providing something which is almost similar to a sort of public stage in which people exchange information, share memories, share jokes, pictures, videos, and communicate with each other in a myriad of different ways. And so I thought I'd just illustrate 3 ways in which we seek to discharge that responsibility right now. Firstly, the coronavirus pandemic has, of course, meant that many, many millions, billions of people around the world need access to authoritative, credible information about this virus, the COVID virus. And that's why we created a new tool called the Coronavirus Information Center, which you can see at the top of your news feed. And that gives access to authoritative information from the WHO and from health authorities. And there's about 2 billion people have used it. Almost 400 million people have double-clicked on more information. And at the same time, we have significantly removed, or tried to identify and remove misinformation about the coronavirus, so that misinformation does not lead to real-world harm. And that's the reason, for example, why controversially we removed a post from the president of Brazil, President Bolsonaro, recently, or a few weeks ago, when he made a claim about a bogus cure for coronavirus, which we thought would pose an immediate threat to people's health. So we're trying to discharge our responsibilities in trying to play our role as a communications network, as a social media platform, while the world goes through this very difficult time. Secondly, I'm not sure that many people often appreciate this, but one of the most important catalysts, economic catalysts that Facebook brings to our economies is the way in which small and medium-sized businesses, bakeries, local gyms, family farms, use our tools to advertise and to reach clients. And over 90% of them use our tools for free. There are about 160 million small businesses, 25 million of them in Europe alone, who do that. And so we have redoubled our efforts to help small businesses as they try and recover from from the economic shock associated with the pandemic. We've given them more support, financial support, but also support in how to use our tools so that they can grow again and create employment. And the third thing, of course, is that we have a profound responsibility to try and play a useful and responsible role in the way in which elections play out, election campaigns play out on our platform. We have the US elections coming up in November. It will be a highly aggressive, brutal, polarized campaign. And for that reason, and also because of the confusion in many voters' minds about the effect the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, will have on their ability to vote, we announced this week what will be America's largest voter information and voter registration effort ever. We're in a sense repurposing the COVID information hub or the technology behind it that I talked about earlier to provide, we hope between now and November, around 160 million Americans information about how to vote, when to vote, where to vote, how to register to vote, how to get a vote by mail, to vote by mail if they need to, which may sound uncontroversial in the Netherlands, or at least even in the UK where I come from. But voter registration and participation is highly politicized and polarized in this country as well, in addition to, of course, playing our role in making sure that the worst forms of fake news and misinformation do not appear on our platform. Just yesterday, we removed an advertisement from Donald Trump, and his campaign, which used a symbol which was used by the Nazis to label political opponents. We removed that ad. There's always a lot of controversy about whether we draw the line in the right place. Some people think we should take down more content. Other people think we take down too much. But we try and play a responsible role in drawing the line to protect free expression, but at the same time to make sure that people don't say things that lead to real-world harm. So those are three examples, I hope, of the way in which a company like Facebook is trying to take its responsibility seriously in the context of the huge challenges that the world faces today. I hope that's helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for these opening remarks. You mentioned the Trump ads that were removed earlier today, or maybe that was yesterday evening already, with the Nazi iconography. Yesterday as well, there was some criticism from Joanna Hoffman, former right hand to Steve Jobs, CEO of Apple. And she literally said the following: the like button is slowly destroying the very fabric of democracy. Now, you know both sides. You've as well been a world leader, a politician, but you're also one of the leading positions at Facebook. How do you view this view of Joanna Hoffman?
Well, I don't agree with it at all. I think if you look at the experience of the way in which politics plays out on social media, of course there are problems. I mean, look, like any form of communication tools, whether it's email, telephone, radio, fax, you name it, is used by good people and bad people to say wonderful things and to say bad things. That is not new. Human nature wasn't invented by Silicon Valley. I'm afraid there are always people who want to spread falsehoods and spread hate speech and so on. So our responsibility is to ensure that the fundamental values of free expression are safeguarded as much as possible, because Facebook believes that one of the extraordinary things of social media is that in a relatively short space of time, it has allowed millions, billions of people around the world who previously didn't have the means to express themselves to now express themselves as they want, when they want, how they want, without being told what to say, without having their words censored, or without having to pay a considerable amount of money for it. Our tools are, because they're paid for by advertising, they are available for free to use by anyone, from a poor student in Guatemala to a fancy banker in Wall Street. But of course, we need to make sure that when politics is discussed and played out on our platforms, that we try and put some guardrails in place. So, for instance, what we do is that, and this, by the way, didn't exist in 2016, didn't exist at the time of the Brexit referendum. Clearly, mistakes were made by Facebook in the past, failing to identify Russian interference in the 2016 election. Clearly, mistakes were made around the revelations of what Cambridge Analytica got up to. But since then, the company really has changed enormously. Now, employs over 35,000 people to make sure the integrity of the platform is safe. We work with over 60 fact checkers, including 2 of them in the Netherlands, to make sure that they independently can fact check and label and downgrade material that is shown to be false. Independent studies have shown that the amount of fake news on our platform has declined by a half or even over a half in recent years. And as far as politicians are concerned, if they want to run an ad on Facebook, it has to be authorized, there has to be a clear disclaimer on who's paid for it. And then crucially, something we do that doesn't happen in political advertising in print or broadcast media is we put those ads in a live ads library so everyone can see who's paid for the ad, who's being targeted, where the ad is being run, so that there is maximum transparency. But of course I accept there's always a debate, particularly when you get highly polarized politicians. And of course in the United States at the moment we have a highly polarizing president of the United States. There's always, of course, debate, and particularly in the run-up to an election, about whether we're drawing the line in the right place. At the moment, Facebook is under tremendous pressure from some people who think that we should take more of Donald Trump's material down. But, you know, how can I put it? At the end of the day, he is the elected president of the United States, whether we like it or not. And in the end of the day, the best way to hold politicians to account is to hear what they say, the good, the bad, and the ugly, criticize it, satirize it, attack it, and then to vote. And that's
I would like to invite someone to our conversation who has a question about this very topic, fake news, as well as challenging the status quo. Noelle Biesheuvel, welcome to the conversation. You're a student. What do you study?
Hi, Nick. My name is Noelle, and I'm a master's student in private law.
And what's your question?
Well, my question was also relating to fake news and potential misinformation. So I have changed it a little bit to maybe add to the discussion you already had. But I saw a quote from Mark Zuckerberg in 2019. People should be able to judge for themselves the character of politicians. And I was wondering, where do you see who bears the responsibility for messages from politicians? Should it be the social media network? Should it be the people who are on it? Or should it be the politicians? Who bears the weight to value the message?
Well, I think that the principal responsibility, of course, is the speaker, particularly politicians who are seeking to be elected or are elected. They have a responsibility to speak, you know, accurately, moderately, and wisely. But you know, having spent 20 years in politics myself, politics is a very rough business. Politicians always, particularly, maybe they don't do this in the Netherlands, but I tell you, they do this in the UK and they do this everywhere else. Politicians always exaggerate, caricature their own virtues and how wonderful they are, and the vices of their opponents. And they always say wildly exaggerated things, either wildly over-the-top claims about how brilliant life would be if they get elected, or wildly exaggerated claims about what would happen if their opponents were to be elected. So, you know, you often hear politicians saying, I don't know, because I've been in power, the economy is doing so well, even though not a single economist might think that the economy has anything to do with that particular politician. Or, you know, what you often hear in the UK, we're going to give lots of extra money to the NHS without raising extra taxes. And everybody knows that's not possible. The crucial question is, who is it really right for a private company and for Mark Zuckerberg and his team sitting here in California to start vetting what Dutch politicians or German politicians say about each other, given that the way in which politicians communicate, the political idiom is an idiom of exaggeration and caricature, always has been and always will be. And we believe that whilst, of course, we should draw the lines somewhere, and we do not allow politicians to spread rhetoric which can lead to immediate real-world harm and violence. We do not allow politicians to say things which suppress or intimidate people from voting. But we don't think it's right for a private company to vet what politicians in open democracies say about each other and to their voters. In the end, that's the role of democracy itself, to hold those politicians to account.
Noelle, thank you very much for joining. We have someone else joining us, and that will be Karen De Loos. She's a professional. Sorry, Karen, what do you do?
Well, I'm an independent marketing and communications consultant.
All right.
So within my profession, my teams deal with developing campaigns, both offline and online. So yes, also Facebook and Instagram.
And what's your question?
Well, when you listen to all these, the good and a bit negative things about using social media, Mr. Clegg would you recommend, or maybe you did already, your kids to use Facebook and their friends?
Yeah, I mean, look, you can't use, you're not supposed to use Facebook or Instagram if you're under 13. And I have an 18-year-old, a 16-year-old, and an 11-year-old. So the 11-year-old does not use Instagram and Facebook, but the two oldest use Instagram, and I think they also use. I need to check. I think they also use Snap, and they use a lot of message. You know, they message each other, their friends a lot. Yeah, look, I mean. I think it's right that we as a society have dwelt so much on the negative sides of social media. And as I said, there is always a dark side to any technology. I mean, a car is one of the most liberating technologies ever invented, but you put a murderer or a terrorist behind the wheel of a car and the car becomes a murder weapon. Every technology can be used for good and for bad. I think the effect of social media is overwhelmingly good because it allows people to express themselves, to communicate with each other, and the overwhelming material of the billions and billions of posts and messages that are transmitted on our networks every day from billions of people around the world are positive. They're innocent. They're about people's children, their cats, their birthday parties, their local football team, you name it. Our need is to go after the small. It's a small minority of content that is bad, to protect children from it where we can. So, you know, if you feel that someone is on the platform who's under 13, it's very important for people to report that to Facebook. We use tools to try and identify underage users as well. It's tricky. It's not very easy, but we do try and do so. And I just hope over time. I mean, this is a very young industry. Facebook's only been around for 15 years. And you get the great pendulum swings. It's always the same with technology. When a new technology arrives, everybody thinks it's brilliant. It's the solution to everything. It's marvelous. It's a miracle cure. And then they swing the other extreme and they say it's a sort of terrible thing, and all the bad things in the world are from it. Neither are true. Neither are true. No. It's neither completely brilliant or completely awful. It is like all technologies. It's somewhere in between. And I hope over time we can have a more balanced debate, including and a research-based debate, including on the use of social media by young people.
Karen, Noella, I want to thank you for joining our conversation, as well as, of course, Sir Clegg himself. Thank you very much for making the time to talk to us about the global affairs and communications of Facebook, and have a nice day today. For you, it's still morning, of course. Okay.
Erg bedankt. Dag.